So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I will be, let me give you the agenda here. So I'll provide just a really quick introduction to what the eScience Institute does. The eScience Institute is the home of the Data Science for Social Good program. And then I'll tell you a little bit about the Data Science for Social Good program itself and sort of the motivation behind it, why we do the program. And then I'll turn it over to Mark Weldon-Smith, our program manager, who will tell you about the program structure and shape and kind of what you can expect the program to look like on a day-to-day basis. And then he'll hand it back to me, and I will talk a little bit about the project selection process and what you can expect as you move through that process and what we're looking for, and tell you a bit about previous projects that we've taken on in the past, so you have a sense of kind of the breadth of our interests and what we're looking for. So with that, as I said, the eScience Institute is the parent organization for the UW Data Science for Social Good program. And we're a hub for data-intensive science on the campus of the University of Washington. Our mission is to empower researchers and students in all fields to answer fundamental questions through the use of large, complex, and/or noisy data. And we have been around for 15 years now. We just had our 15-year celebration in November, and the DSSG program has been running for 9 of those years. So this will be our 10th iteration, which is a really exciting milestone for us. This is our physical home on campus. We're housed on the 6th floor of the Physics and Astronomy Tower. If you happen to be familiar with campus, that's a photo of our building you see there on the left. And it's an open, it's a mixed use open office floor plan. So we have a lot of different kinds of spaces within the studio. We have some rooms that can be used in sort of traditional seminar style configurations, a nice big conference room, little breakout rooms that can be used for remote work or quiet conversations. And then a lot of informal spaces, comfortable couches, a kitchen, and lots of whiteboard space for collaboration. This is a slide showing the members of our research staff, and what I mostly want to draw your attention to here is our disciplinary breadth. And so I like to joke that we literally have disciplines from A to Z represented. We have an astrophysicist on staff as well as a zoologist. So we really take that intellectual breadth and intellectual diversity seriously here, and is one of the really cool things about working in this space, I think. So this is just a list of some of our other core programs, the ways that we disseminate data science expertise and best practices. So we have open office hours that are available to anybody on campus, whether that's students, faculty, research scientists, whatever it may be. We offer a data science seminar every quarter for credit for students. At the beginning of every quarter, we also run software carpentry, which is a quick 4-day boot camp that serves as an introduction to programming. And usually we offer both Python and R. We also have a whole suite of more disciplinary oriented hack weeks. And we run an incubator program every winter that pairs one of our data scientists with a researcher to do kind of intensive work. They commit to working together 16 hours a week for the entire quarter to really push hard and advance some aspect of that researcher's work. And then we have the Data Science for Social Good program, which is what you are all here to find out about. So in this program, we have kind of multiple goals that we're trying to meet simultaneously. I think the first and most important thing to realize is that, with the name Data Science for Social Good, that's sort of aspirational. We realize that, having good intentions are just the beginning when it comes to generating positive social incomes or outcomes. And so we incorporate a lot of time for ethical discussion and reflection and for considering the impact of the work from a lot of different angles. So we really try to see the program as a laboratory where we're trying to figure out how to use data science for social good. And we approach that as a really layered and complex undertaking. Equally important to that goal is training the students who are fellows in the program and training them in data science methods and best practices. So we really try to be very responsive to students' interests and needs, and we get a lot of feedback from the fellows at various points in the program, and then we're continually using that to iterate and update and make changes every year that reflect what the fellows most need to get the most out of the program. We're also very interested in increasing data science capacity across various fields, disciplines, partner organizations, and different kinds of researchers. And so that's kind of, affecting the organizational capacities of the organizations that our project leads come from. And then, of course, we're aiming to positively impact society in the subject areas that are taken up by the projects that we support in the program. So those are four of the major goals that we're trying to hit all at once here. And then Mark will tell you a little bit more about how we go about that, what the shape and the structure of the program is and what you can expect. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention that we added this slide just to let you know. A couple years ago, we also produced this white paper called the Data for Good Growth Map. So we took what we've learned from running our program for many years and also connected with 16 other institutions who run similar programs, similar in some ways. All of our programs have slightly different flavors and structures and orientations. But we got together and created this growth map that lays out some decision points that an institution would need to take into consideration, the sort of options that it has when developing a program like this. So if you are coming from a university that doesn't have a program like this and you think it's something that you might be interested in spinning up there, this would be a really good starting point and a good resource. And we're also always available to answer any questions and help guide that process as well. So now, for real, I will turn it over to Mark to talk about program structure.
And welcome. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Weldon-Smith. I am the program manager for community engagement with the eScience Institute and also the program manager for the DSSG program. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit today about the program structure. And if you want to reach out to me anytime after this information session today about the application process or the program in general, my details are going to be flashed at the end, so you'll have time to note it down. I'm going to be moving quickly today through slides, but just know that you can visit the FAQ at any time on our website, or any of the pages on our website have a great overview of the program. So let me give you an overview of the team structure. So our program is organized around teams, and in 2024, we'll have 4 teams with the following structure. So each team will have 4 student fellows, 1 eScience, data science lead, and 1 to 2 project leads. And so by design, we look to build student fellow cohorts around disciplinary diversity, a range of technical skills, and we balance student interests with the needs of any given project. As a program, we support teams through guidance on a number of areas, including technical and methodological choices, cloud computing, tool selection, analytical approaches, programming help, and even sometimes help with project management approaches. And finally, a note on project leads, and we'll be talking a little bit more about them later. They should be thought of as co-producers and collaborators during the program, not just clients. They guide project design and they steer the overall goals of a given project, and they come from a range of different technical backgrounds and industries. And we'll talk a little bit more about them in the upcoming slides. So during our 9-year history, we've been lucky enough to work with a very diverse group of participants. And as you can see on the screen here, we've had student fellows that have come from institutions from all corners of the country, whether it's local community colleges to state schools, from literally across the country. It's important to mention here that each applicant is assessed on their own merits, and regardless of their college affiliation. So, you know, we feel if you feel that you can strongly contribute positively to the outcomes of the program, we highly encourage you to apply. We work with a number of project leads from many different disciplines and sectors. And you can see some examples on the screen right now. These include local Seattle government entities, other UW departments, and other nonprofit organizations, such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Conservation International. We're also open to industry partners, although this has been less frequent or something that hasn't happened yet, but something we're open to. Let's talk briefly about attendance expectations. And the three key takeaways on this slide are that we expect student fellows to be in person for the duration of the program, with some flexibility for remote hours. Project leads and data scientists supporting the project may be on campus, they might be remote or hybrid. It really just depends on the project. Program staff, such as myself and Nisa, will be hybrid and are locally based in Seattle, meaning that we're physically based here in Seattle. Sometimes we'll be in the office, sometimes we'll be at home, but still through the summer in the Seattle area. This slide talks about our integrated program structure. So socially impactful data science requires equal attention to each of these areas. And I call your attention to the three pillars here. We have applied research, engineering, and ethical engagement practices. So during the 10-week program, each of these pillars inform and provide structure for our process. Again, the key takeaway here is the intentional structure that underpins the DSSG program. If you want to dive deep on this sort of intentional structure that we have, again, highly encourage you to visit our website. You'll get an insight into how we use this structure to inform the 10 weeks of the program and what you'll do throughout that process. We provide a number of trainings and tutorials to get everyone up to speed on some of the skills that will be crucial during the program. Here is a list of tutorials we've offered in the past. You'll notice, and it's a bit hard to see in this room here, but the first two, which are beginner Git and intermediate Git, are always offered as part of the program. And the other tutorials are provided as needed, depending on what is required from the projects and on student interest. Sometimes we offer tutorials because students request them, even if it's not based on a skill or a tool that will be directly used with their project. Again, this information is available on the website. You can see how it is connected to our former slide. We want teams to feel supported and be successful in all aspects of the program. And so to this end, we run a series of workshops, and they are discussion-based and interactive. These include areas such as team development, stakeholder engagement and analysis, and public speaking. Other activities include project spotlight. So this is an opportunity for teams to present work on a regular basis. Also a great chance to get feedback from people outside the given project team that you're working on. We undertake docathons. Undertaking regular documentation is like a cornerstone of best practice in data science. Everyone knows it's important. It's always hard to make time for, so we build it into the program. Career conversations are something that take place within the 10 weeks. These are panel discussions over a provided lunch, presentations from professionals engaged in data science for social good that encompass different sectors. And we run social events. So an example of some of our social activities from previous years include things like ice cream socials, weekly game sessions, karaoke. So we want to give you that community feel and interconnected feel when you're there during the 10 weeks during the summer. This slide gives you a sense of the program cadence from June 10th through June 16th. Starting at week 1 with team formation. This involves some of the team building activities we touched on earlier. Moving on to weeks 2 through 5, where teams really dig into the problem space that they'll be working on. Weeks 6 through 7 are about scoping solutions that work within the available project time that teams have available to them. Weeks 8 and 9 are what we call the grind time. So teams will be pushing hard to deliver on their previously scoped solutions, and then sticking the landing for week 10, which is presentation, posting, and handoff time, and wrapping up the work that you've done in the program. Again, check out the website for a breakdown on what's available within each of these brackets during the program. So you heard me mention project leads at the start of my session. So a little more on why they're an essential part of the program structure. And here's a brief overview of how they support teams during the summer. So they're integrated members of the teams, and they commit to being available on an average of 16 hours per week. So whether that's in person, remotely, on Zoom or Slack or through email. And project leads are asked to participate in program-wide sessions and meetings. So they provide domain expertise that brings team members up to speed on specific knowledge of the problem space that they'll be working in, and they facilitate and develop relationships with key stakeholders aligned with projects that the teams will be undertaking. It is worth mentioning at this point, however, that student fellows are expected to engage in the stakeholder process, even though it's primarily driven by the project leads. So this is a breakdown of what we expect from students. This is a 40-hour-a-week commitment, and we provide a $9,000 stipend for the 10 weeks of the summer. So we split this into 2 payments, $7,000 at the beginning of summer and $2,000 at the end of summer. We have a pretty strict attendance policy and we discuss these details on the website. And during the application process, you will basically affirm that you'll comply with the system that we have in place. Most importantly, you'll need to be present for the first 2 and the last 2 weeks of the program in Seattle. You need to be a current student enrolled during spring and fall 2024, either a grad student or an undergraduate student, undergraduate senior entering graduate school in fall. We look for baseline programming and stats knowledge on this point. Consider whether the following apply to your situation. Although we don't have rigid requirements, you should be comfortable using a program language to solve problems or be able to seek out solutions and implement them. The most commonly used languages include Python, R, SQL, and JavaScript. And finally, having coding experience outside coursework makes for a really compelling applicant. Just a note for international students. International students are eligible to apply as long as their visa status allows them to work in the US, and they can obtain a circular practical training or CPT status. Unfortunately, we cannot offer admission-based or optional practical training or OPT status, and we cannot sponsor student visas for this program. The 2 most important things that we're looking for in applications regarding personal experience and aspirations is getting a deep sense of your underlying motivation for applying to the program, and your experience and attitude towards working closely with other team members. I mentioned on the last slide that we have a student fellows stipend. However, we realize there are some students who are in circumstances where there might be additional support that's needed. So anyone applying to the program is also eligible to apply for the UW DSSG Opportunity Scholarship, which may provide a supplemental award. When you apply for this, you'll be asked to briefly describe the circumstances that pose a financial barrier and provide a budget for how much money you're requesting and how you would spend it. We encourage you to visit our website for more information. You can see the URL listed on the screen there, tinyurl.com/UW DSSG. So what you can expect from us as the Science Institute and the organizers of this program is, you'll be advised by data science mentors who are experienced in a cross-disciplinary collaboration and have a wide range of expertise in areas such as machine learning, database design, modeling, visualization, statistical inference, GIS, optimization, and cloud computing, to name a few. You will be trained in best practices in version control, reproducibility, ethics, and human-centered design. We provide a lot of support and structure for teamwork collaboration, which is the crux of the program and an intensive experience. As mentioned on the workshop slide, and to help ensure that teamwork is successful, we begin with team development workshop at the beginning of the summer. And each team will also complete a project charter to help facilitate conversations for aligning expectations at the start of the program. And we give you periodic reminders to revisit those expectations as you move through the program. We also provide a data science curriculum. This project work is where teams will spend most of their time, but especially in the early weeks of the summer, we'll provide a number of trainings to get everyone up to speed on some of the skills that will be crucial during the program. We have on screen an operational flowchart that shows the underlying many-layered support structure during the 10-week program. So it's not important for you to remember all these details right now, but the thing I want you to take away is that how we've had a very intentional and well thought through support process that's been honed over the last 9 years of our program's existence. So, you know, we want you to feel that you'll be supported and that we have a clear direction on where you can ask for help when you're involved with the DSSG program. To close my section, I'd like to share a brief reflection from Dr. Jeannie Romich, who served as a project lead in our 2021 and 2022 seasons. She said, "What surprised me about the program, I was not expecting for it to be as much fun as it was." The takeaway here is that we take the work that we do in the DSSG program seriously, and the work is challenging, but the experience is also about connection, it's about possibility, and the sheer fun of coming together to work on a problem space in an intentional way with a supportive team structure. So before I hand it back to Anissa, I'm going to give you just a quick 4 key point takeaway from my section. Number 1, we have a thoughtful and intentional program structure honed over 9 years of experience with a diverse group of student fellows, data scientists, project leads, and program staff. Teamwork is at the heart of what we do in the UW DSSG program, and we're looking for applicants ready to apply themselves in a sustained and collaborative setting. Please read our website for FAQs to learn more about past projects and dive deeper on the program specifics over the 10 weeks. And finally, reach out to me with your questions. You know, we'll show you the date on the last slide, but remember, the application deadline is 11:59 p.m. on February 12th. If you have any questions before that, my details will be at the end. Totally happy to speak with you about any questions you might have about the application process, the program itself, or everything leading up to that deadline. So thank you so much. I'm going to pass it back to Anissa now, who's going to lead you through the next section on the fellow selection process.
Thank you, Mark. Before I get into the details about the fellow selection process, I did want to just offer one piece of clarifying information following up on something that Mark said about the attendance policy. He mentioned that you absolutely need to be present in Seattle for the first 2 weeks and last 2 weeks of the program. You need to be in Seattle the whole summer. It's an in-person program, but we do realize that over the summer, people may have some travel, that there's some planned absences you need to have. So we allow for up to 2 days for planned, if you have to go to a conference, you have to go to a wedding or something like that. But those 2 days cannot be taken in the first 2 weeks of the program or the last 2 weeks of the program. They're just the first 2 weeks are just too crucial for team formation and getting everybody to gel and on the same page. And the last 2 weeks are, well, the last 2 weeks, they're insanely busy and you're really working hard to meet a deadline. So that's what Mark meant by that. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little more insight into the selection process, what we're looking for and what you can expect as you move through that process with us. The call for applications is now open, and as Mark said, it will be open until February 12th at 11:59 p.m. The URL is here. This is a tiny URL, tinyurl.com/UWDSSG. Okay, so what we're looking for when we're selecting fellows for the program, we are evaluating individuals, and we also are trying to select for a cohort and for teams that are going to be successful in their projects. So in individuals, we are expecting to see some baseline programming and research methods background. We really consider closely your motivation for wanting to participate in the program. As Mark mentioned over and over again, teamwork is really emphasized in our program. So a strong orientation toward and experience with teamwork can be helpful. And we're also looking for experience with prior research and working towards social good. And those don't have to be, those can be exclusive of each other, right? So when we ask you to talk about your experience working towards social good, it doesn't have to be research-based. It doesn't have to be academic in nature. It doesn't have to be technical in nature. But we want to know what you have done to work toward addressing issues that are of social consequence in the past. And we're looking for a commitment to respecting diversity and being able to work with diverse team members and stakeholders, because that will be an important part of our program. Across the cohort, we are really trying to select for a range of disciplinary expertise, a range of technical abilities, and a range of educational abilities. So what that means is we would not want a program of 16 student fellows who are all PhD students in computer science. We wouldn't get the kind of cross-fertilization and creativity and team members who are willing to kind of challenge each other and think differently and push the project in different directions if we had a really homogeneous cohort. So we really are looking for breadth across all of those areas. So this is how the process progresses after the deadline of February 12th this year. We'll do an initial screening of applications to identify the applications that kind of meet our threshold criteria and eligibility requirements. And anyone who passes that initial screening, their application will be reviewed by a committee of research staff at the eScience Institute. And a subset of those candidates will be invited to participate in an interview. Historically, about 20% of the total applicant pool has been invited to sit for interviews. Those will be panel style. They're usually held over the University of Washington's spring break in late March. So this year, I think that's March 18th to 22nd. So that's not set in stone, but that's historically when we found the time to do these interviews. And the nature of the questions that we ask are kind of a combination of asking about your technical experience and behavioral questions. After the interview stage, then a subset of those candidates will advance onto what we call the shortlist. And shortlisted candidates will be asked to provide us with an additional layer of information. So at that point in early April, we will also know, by then we will know what projects we're taking on for the summer. And so shortlisted candidates will receive descriptions of the projects we're taking on, and we'll ask those shortlisted candidates to then rank those projects to tell us which ones they're most interested in working on and why, what they feel they have to contribute to that team, and what they're hoping to learn from that team. And then we'll take that into consideration when making our final selection and sending out offers of admission, which happens mid-April. And historically, about fewer than 10% or fewer, or 10% or less of our total number of applicants end up getting offers of admission. So it's a fairly competitive program, selective program, I should say. Important dates, January 3rd was when applications opened. So they've been open for a couple of weeks now. today is the 24th. This is our student info session. We will be posting a recording of this online for anybody who couldn't make it today. February 12th is when applications are due. We will notify people sometime in mid-March if they are invited to sit for an interview, and then late March is when interviews will be held. Early April is when you can expect to know if you are shortlisted and to get an offer of admission to the program. And then mid-April, a couple weeks after that, is when we are able to make offers of admission or let people know if they're waitlisted. So basically, if you get to the shortlisting status, that means you'll either get an offer of admission or you'll be on the wait list. And if something opens up, then you could potentially get an offer. The first day of the program is June 10th, and the last day of the program is August 16th this year. So that was a little bit about the selection process. I also promised to give you some insight into what our projects look like. So I'll talk a little bit about what we have done in the past, with the caveat that the kinds of projects we've taken on in the past do not necessarily predict the kinds of projects that we'll take on in the future. We have a very, very open mind about what counts as data science and what kinds of work we're willing to take on in this program, as you will see when I give you the examples. So this is a very non-exhaustive list of some of the topics we're interested in that we've worked on in the past: affordability and livability, city planning, environmental issues, equity and justice, hazards and resilience, health and wellness, housing, public education, sociodemographic disparities, and transportation. These are some of the areas that eScience specializes in to really, and where eScience can really help advance these projects. So working with new platforms, algorithms, methods, and data sets, working with either particularly large or particularly heterogeneous or particularly noisy data sets, creating scalable analytics and predictive models, interactive visualization, code review, publishing, reproducibility, all the kind of data science best practices, and online teaching materials and tutorials. So last year we took on 2 projects. This year we anticipate taking on 4, but it could be any number between 2 and 4, which means 2, 3, or 4. So I'll just briefly describe a little bit about the 2 projects we had last year. One, the full title was Generating Regionally Integrative Data Sets to Understand Groundwater Insecurities in the Colorado River Basin. Our shorthand nickname for it was the Groundwater Project. So this project was premised on the idea that groundwater is really poorly understood, although very important, and kind of a very important source of water for agriculture, for drinking water, for all sorts of things. But that it's very poorly understood. It's really hard to measure. And they were sort of operating under, they would often say, you can't manage what you can't understand. So this team was using data from satellites that detect very minor changes in the gravitational field of the Earth to estimate changes in groundwater levels, and then build a reproducible pipeline that other water scientists and policy researchers could use. The second project was looking at the feasibility of using heat pumps in Alaska and other regions of the Arctic. And that was really based on the idea that electrification is going to be an important step in fighting climate change. And so replacing carbon burning fuel sources with an electrified source like heat pumps is potentially a part of that solution. But Alaska is a really challenging place to use that kind of technology because of the extremely cold temperatures. So they were building a model using statewide building outlines and very granular climate data to create interactive visualizations that different stakeholder groups could use who are working on this issue of decarbonization and electrification. So those are the 2 projects from last year, and then I'll provide a couple more examples that just give you a sense of kind of how broadly we view what counts as data science and sort of where our program can intervene in a given data science project. So this was a project that we took on a number of years ago. I think it might have been 2016 or something like that. Mining online data for early detection of unsafe food products. So this was using text mining and machine learning on a sort of previously untapped data source of online reviews of food products, and checking to see if those models could detect foodborne illness earlier than conventional epidemiological monitoring methods. This was very exploratory work, kind of on the front end of a new applied research area. But we realized that most of the time in 10 weeks, what we're really doing in that short amount, in an intensive amount of time, is taking on a small slice of a much larger piece of work that is ongoing. And so it's more like we're coming in the middle of it and driving some small piece forward or making some incremental change. So I think a good example of that was the Global Open Sidewalks project that we supported parts of over the course of a couple different years in the DSSG program. And basically that project was being led by researchers who were trying to develop a routing application that was tailored to the needs of people with mobility limitations. And it turns out that writing that routing algorithm is actually like the easy part, and the hard part is that the pedestrian data that that the algorithm needs doesn't exist. It's not on the map, and so their much bigger and longer term effort was, how do we get pedestrian data on the map? And in this case, specifically OpenStreetMap. So they were developing a new data standard to propose to the OpenStreetMap community for how to generate and document pedestrian data on the map. So I talked about a project that was kind of like exploratory early stage, a project that was kind of, in the middle of a much longer ongoing effort. And then in this third case, this is an example of a project where we came in at a much kind of later stage of work. So this project was focused on detecting vote dilution in minority communities, so violations of the Voting Rights Act. And in this case, we were working with an R package that already existed. It was called EI Compare and was already being used in court cases to litigate challenges to the Voting Rights Act. So what our fellows were doing was adding functionality and polishing that package and building out a series of vignettes to make it more useful to stakeholders who were interested in using it. So kind of at the more refining something that exists at that stage. So all of that, I hope, gives you a sense that there's no one cookie cutter project model in our program. We take this very broad view of what counts as data science. So it's not just predictive analytics, it's not just machine learning, it's not AI. And every DSSG project really has a unique set of challenges and opportunities. So that's all the content that Mark and I had for you, and we are happy to take questions now. We have about 20 minutes. Mark, do you want to come back up here and we'll field those questions together? And those of you who are online, are they able to unmute and ask their questions, or do they need to use the Q&A function?
It might be easiest.
Okay. Well, feel free to put your questions in the Q&A, or I can see you actually, so you could put your hand up and we'll at least try it if you wanted to try. Okay, I see a question online. So let's see. I think I can. Sophie, can you go ahead and unmute?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, it seems like an awesome program, and you guys have done a great job. It sounds like building it out and everything. So thanks for telling us more about it. My question was about the just continuation of projects. Are there ever opportunities, like, 10 weeks is a pretty short amount of time if you love learning about, whatever you're working on? Can you continue to work with the team, or have you seen that in the past?
Yeah, we've seen it really frequently. So I would start by saying there is never an obligation for fellows to continue working on the projects after the 10-week duration of the summer is over. You are making a commitment to that 10 weeks. And if you cut your ties and go back to your work and don't have time to work on it again, that's fine. But as you have implied, oftentimes there's really a desire to keep working together. And I've seen that happen in a number of different ways. Oftentimes, the project leads we're working with are academic faculty, but they're faculty who are working on very applied projects, and they have ongoing long-term relationships with stakeholders and decision makers and policymakers. And so when we do work with faculty, that makes it really easy to maintain a relationship with students, with fellows who are going to be students in the next academic year, right? Because faculty members and students, there's kind of a model for them to be working together. And we've even had faculty members from other universities. We had one, the Heating Lows project that I mentioned, that project lead is from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And she ended up hiring 3 of her student fellows who were all from different universities and somehow made that work. And they continued working with her for the entire next academic year. One of them, we've seen a number of master's theses and dissertations then be based on the work that was started in the DSSG program. So that's another way that that's happened. And then even often publications come out of this down the road. 10 weeks is never going to be enough time to produce a publication, but there often is some sort of publication-oriented artifact that comes out of it. And student fellows will often participate in that. But even if they don't have the time to participate in the actual drafting of those publications, we have a really clear expectation from the beginning that they will be included as authors on anything that's based on the work that was done over the summer. And we provide opportunities for students to present that work. So even years later, the eScience Institute will cover travel costs to get to a conference to present the work, for example. Thanks for the question. Let's see if we have an in-person question, then I'll jump back to the online. Yeah.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation. Very informative. I guess I had a clarifying question on what you mean by baseline, because one of the requirements you mentioned was baseline knowledge and programming.
Yeah.
So I guess I just wanted to know what that means.
That's an excellent question. It's a little bit of a moving target, which is, oh yes, I'm sorry. Thank you for letting. Yes, I'll repeat the question. The question in the room was, what do we mean by baseline programming skills when we mentioned that as sort of a criteria? And we sort of intentionally are vague about that because it is a little bit of a moving target and it sort of depends on the projects that we end up taking on. But I would say the common denominator is having experience programming outside, not just in coursework, right? So if you've taken a number of programming classes and you've done kind of the homework assignments that were provided for you, and like that probably is not going to give you the experience that will like really set you up for success in the program. And it's not because we're trying to be snobbish, it's because we want to make sure that people are getting the most out of the program and not sinking but swimming. So yeah, it really, that how you get that background, it can look really different, right? Like so a lot of people have a programming background that they didn't have any formal coursework. They taught themselves how to code in the course of working on their dissertation, and we find that that's often more valuable than somebody who's taken a bunch of classes. Yeah, so that's kind of as specific as I can get at the moment. But I will say that the 2 programming languages that are most commonly used in our program are Python and R. So having experience in either of those will set you up really well. But if somebody knows a whole bunch of other programming languages, then we realize that, you know, if they were coming in and getting put on a Python project and they already have a lot of programming experience, they might be able to pick that up, right? So, yeah. Okay, we have a question in the chat. So I will just go ahead and read that. Hello, thanks for sharing this info. I am currently a PhD student who collaborates in a shared GitHub repository with other members in my lab and my advisor. Currently, we are working towards publishing results. However, since our data and pipelines are unpublishable, yet the repository is private. I noticed in the application, there was a question that asked about providing a link to our GitHub. Do you have advice on navigating such a situation? Will it hurt my application if most of my code on GitHub is private? No, we don't. I would say less than half of our applicants usually include a link to GitHub repo. It can help you. I've never seen it hurt anybody to include a link to their GitHub repo. But if you don't have it, that won't be counted against you. Okay, we have a couple more questions. I'm going to switch to the room, see if anybody has a question in the room. Okay, then I will go ahead and I did see, I saw a hand up earlier and now it looks like it's disappeared. So they put in the chat. Okay, great. Okay, so hi, I'm wondering if this fellowship is strictly serving for continuing students. I'm graduating this May, but I would like to participate in this program. I have 18-month post-degree academic training period, so I do not need a visa sponsorship for OPT. Am I eligible to apply? Do you want to take this?
I don't know if I can answer it 100%. So, I mean, what I will say, I'm not an expert in this particular area, but the language as stated on the website is what I would go by. It's essentially, and I don't have it in front of me, so you got me at a disadvantage of not being able to read it. But what I would do is, if you're at all uncertain about your current visa status and you are an international student and you are looking to apply and the information on the website is not cut and dry enough for you, there is a link under the FAQ to connect with either the UW folks who handle student visas, or work with your own campus's office that handle your visa process. So it is fairly clearly stated on the website. What I'm happy to do is take your question on email after this and we can continue the conversation. I don't want to give you a from the hip answer without really knowing your specifics, and then we can have a dialogue. So yeah, please reach out to me at mweldons@uw.edu and we can keep the conversation going. Thank you. It's a really important question.
Any other questions? Going once. Those are great questions that you all asked. Yes.
A small question. I know that this year will be the thank you. So not related to the program directly. So I know that this year is a 10-year anniversary for this program. So is there any special for 10 years?
The question is there any special,
Special
Like
event,
celebrations or anything?
special policies, any special?
Sure. Yeah, we haven't thought about it yet, but yes, we'll do something.
What's that?
I don't know. We haven't thought about it yet, but I'm sure we'll observe it in some way. Yeah.
I had one more question, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course, go ahead.
So you mentioned the certain programs that belong to the eScience Institute, specifically like the software carpentry and hack weeks and stuff like that. Is that I don't go to University of Washington. I'm at another university. Is that stuff still available to
I'm
everyone?
gonna
Or?
let Mark
Yeah,
answer this question.
yeah. That's a good question for me. So I happen to also, I'm the program manager for the eScience Institute's Hack Week program. And the answer is emphatically yes, that is not a UW only program. And it is a 1 week program that we are currently tooling and getting ready. I anticipate we will have more specific information on the website in the coming months. But what I can tell you is it will be a late summer program. And we are currently shoring up the different domains that we'll be working in. Our concept this year is a little different than the ones we've undertaken in previous years, meaning rather than having a series of separate Hack Week events, we're looking to do more of a combined event to allow cross-pollination between different domains and for folks who may not normally hack together, so to speak, to be able to get the benefit of working in an interdisciplinary fashion and seeing maybe what people in other domains of science are doing in their particular programs. So what is on the website, if you are interested, if you go to the eScience Institute website and you find the Hack Week page, you will notice that there's an expression of interest form. If you fill that out, that will come to me and I will ensure that you get the most up-to-date information as soon as we have it available on the website. unfortunately, I don't have Noah here to speak about software carpentries, but
yeah.
I'll pass that back to Anissa.
Yeah, with software carpentries, I'm not 100% certain. I
Thanks so
believe,
much.
thanks for coming. I believe that it is maybe possible for people outside UW to sign up for those, perhaps in situations where it's not already full. I'm not, but my colleague who runs those is Noah Benson. So if you look, just search for Noah Benson on the eScience website, you could shoot him an email and ask him that question. I'm sorry, I don't have a more specific answer. And then some of the other things, incubator, the data science seminar for credit, I think those things are UW specific. But Hack Weeks are an amazing program, so highly encourage checking those out.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. You answered most of my questions, so I don't have many remaining. I was wondering like what the metric is for success in this program, I suppose in terms of like what a successful project would look like and do, and then also like outcomes for students who are in the program.
That is a great question, and it really varies from project to project. Our projects are so idiosyncratic. They have really different goals. It's hard to sort of apply a standard metric across them. And I would say that, you know, I've used the word humility a number of times, but we realized that in 10 weeks, we're like, what we're doing is not kind of creating the end all be all solution to whatever problem it is that we're approaching. And so we realized that we're making some sort of, you know, incremental contribution to a much bigger and longer standing problem. So with that in mind, we recently, just this year, we just in the last couple months wrapped up a kind of long-term impact study on the Data Science for Social Good program. So we did both a survey and a series of interviews with project leads to find out what has happened with their projects over the last, in the time since they participated in the program. So in some cases, that's going back 9 years, and in some cases, it's going back 1 year. We haven't really started analyzing that data yet. We just finished collecting it, and then also surveyed students to find out what they said the longer term impacts of participating in the program were, and where they are right now. So I don't have, you know, really concrete answers since we hadn't analyzed that data yet, but it's something that's really important to us. And we have sort of anecdotal sorts of data about that. We keep in touch with our alumni, both our project leads and our students. And so we often hear, they will let us know when some really interesting development has come up, or their project, you know, ends up with something that appears in the news or whatever it may be. So, you know, some of the results, like the EI compare package that was about, you know, statistically detecting vote dilution, that has been used in a couple successful court cases in the last, I think that project was in 2020 or 2021. So in the intervening years, it's been used in a couple court cases that have won. The Open Sidewalks project that I talked about now has an $11 million grant from the Department of Transportation to kind of take their solution to trying to get pedestrian data on the map nationwide. But that's ongoing, right? It's not like all of a sudden there's pedestrian data about all of our cities and towns across the country. So we know that these things take time tenfold, and that's why we're doing this longitudinal study now. As far as the impact on students, we hear, you know, anecdotally, we have alumni come back and talk to our students every year, and some of the things that we hear from them are that this program really gives them, it's really helped a lot of folks get their next thing, whether it's getting into graduate school or getting their next job or whatever it may be, because it gives them a really nice artifact that they can show. And people tell us all the time that it's the thing interviewers wanted to talk about, because it's something really tangible that they can focus on, and something that they can use to demonstrate their skills. Another thing they tell us quite often is that the things they learned from the program that were most important when they go out and work in the real world were how to engage with stakeholders, how to think about the ethics of the work, how to engage in cross-functional, cross-disciplinary teams. Those things that are really part of the, like, of course, they're becoming better programmers and better modelers, but it's all those other things that actually really make the difference in kind of working in the real world. And I do know, again, like we just got this data, but it does look like we actually did this study across all of our core programs, not just the Data Science for Social Good program. So it does look like the DSSG fellows were more likely to then go on to work in the public sector for government or in the nonprofit sector. Again, we haven't done any statistical tests to know whether that's statistically significant, but it at first glance, it looks like the program has either had that impact or we are attracting students who are more likely to go into those fields more generally. So sorry, that's a partial answer, but hope it helps. Yeah. Oh, okay, great. I'm curious about the age range of past participants, non-traditional student. I can't say that we have kept statistics on that, but I can say that we have had, I know that we've had a number of students that would probably fall into the category of non-traditional students, people who are parents or caretakers, for example. That's actually one of the things that the opportunity scholarship that Mark talked about is really essential for. And one of the reasons we put it in place was so that folks who are in a position to be caretakers can, access, potentially access some additional funding. So we certainly welcome non-traditional applicants and really try to find ways to support them when that's warranted. Are you able to provide any general advice or tips to make our applications stand out? Be yourself. Don't try to reverse engineer what you think we want to hear. I think that, sometimes it can come across when people kind of have generic responses to things. So just be, thoughtful, be yourself, and pay attention to what we're asking you to demonstrate in any given. If you've looked at our application, there's a number of essays. They're not long essays, but it's the essays that are the most important part of the application. So I would say that would be my big tip, is take this seriously. Mark, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add, as I mentioned on one of my slides, is us really knowing your motivation for applying. So everything that Anissa said, but also non-generic, personally felt driven answers that kind of demonstrate why you'd be a great fit.
Last call for questions. Otherwise, we're ending right on time. Well, thank you all for your attention and for your thoughtful questions. We really hope to get applications from all of you. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you, Verletta and Gabriel, for setting this up for us. Everything went really smoothly with the technology, and that's awesome. And this is a beautiful space to be in. Those of you who are online, if you're at the University of Washington, come visit the Open Scholarship Commons. It opened recently, and it's a wonderful space to work. Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.